Welcome back. It is time for us to get down to the newspaper review. My name is Beatrice Nudi.
And my name is George Gishuru, and we start with the Daily Nation. They go with the headline, Ruto's Mr. Fix-It and links to Adani Group. Mr. Adil Arshad Khawaja was, until recently, mostly known for his legal practice and chairmanship of the Safaricom board. His role in recent controversial multi-billion shilling deals involving Indian conglomerate Adani Group has, however, put his name on the lips of many Kenyans. But just who is this man who calls President William Ruto his long-time friend? It's a story that you can read on page 7 about this man, Mr. Fix-It, and who he is and what he has been doing and why he calls President William Ruto a long-time friend. It's on page 7. I also see on page 12, JKIA lease probe. MPs now call for a forensic audit into secret deal. It's on page 12, if we can peruse there. And they are saying that CS says government should have been more open with details of the proposal. A parliamentary committee has ordered for a forensic audit into the deal between Kenya Airports Authority and India's Adani Holdings on the proposed upgrade of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. This comes even as National Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi spelled out tough financial conditions to the Indian firm. And he said, we are still waiting for the courts. If they say terminate, we will. If it says continue, we will through the law. So you can read that on page 12. And then 50,000 varsity students cannot pay fees according to MPs. And yesterday MPs instructed Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Ogamba to issue a circular directing universities to allow the students to sit their exams even if they have not fully paid their tuition fees. That is a story you can read on page 6. Cancer warrior, I asked my husband to remarry after I was gone. That is on the parenting pullout inside the Daily Nation. Another blow to the government, again dished out by the courts. And they are saying, blow to Kenya Kwanza as court blocks planned sale of state companies. The High Court has declared the Privatization Act of 2023 unconstitutional because it was enacted without meaningful public participation. Justice Chacha Mwita ruled that the act also violates the oversight role of the National Assembly. I don't know what the biggest headache now for the government, both county and national, seems to be this thing they are calling public participation, because they thought it was just but a formality, you know, and how far you just say we did a public participation, but now the courts are adamant what public participation is. And I agree, because we are the people who are shouldering these things, and actually they are aimed at helping us as wananchi. So allow the people to have the final say. That's
true. And on the same, actually, page 3 is the same story being covered right here on the Standard. And I see Chacha Mwita, the High Court judge, saying the country is founded on principles of national governance, and the National Assembly must conduct its business in an open manner. So that's still on the same. And I see Kenya Kwanza was seeking to sell state-owned entities, including KICC and Kenya Pipeline. So move was meant to raise billions in government revenue. And I see here that the Privatization Act 2023, which repealed the Privatization Act 2005, gave the CS National Treasury immense powers in the sale of government-owned entities, including not having to get a nod from Parliament. But the court yesterday ruled that the Privatization Act 2023 was enacted without adequate public participation, violating constitutional rights. That's a story on page 3. And you know, the problem with this, even, you know, this is saying that it's supposed to make billions for the government. And that is on top of the billions that have been gotten from overtaxation that we already are having. So we have more money looking for ways to have more money, taking it all in, but then people cannot see where it's going.
Cannot actually feel the relief.
Yeah.
Because if you're raising money through all these means, including like now even the Adani deal that you're bringing in a foreigner to do all these works, but how much money is this foreigner coming to pump into this? Yet there are taxes that are being collected and going towards the maintenance and construction of even airports in the country. So public participation, it's very important. A very sad story here, which is covered on page 3, is that of the last moments of intern doctor who took own life after 36-hour shift. It's on page 3.
What?
And intern doctor in Gatondo dies by suicide after 36-hour shift. Union officials say they are encouraging senior doctors to be better, to better communicate with interns. And Mora is said to have complained about poor treatment by a supervisor at the Gatondo Level 5 hospital in Kiambu County. And it's a very sad story here. You can read about the same terrible story there. Then I see still on the front page, costly fallout, and there is pensive photos there of President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua. So they're talking about the costly fallout, political diversion. That is what the nation is asking. Could it be that wanatuchezea games hapa wakituambia ni fallout, or is it political diversion? And they are saying the growing rift between President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua is overshadowing the pressing crisis the country is facing and diverting attention from critical national issues. Could be the case, because as we speak there are so many things that are not the lecturers are still on strike. We're still discussing about the university, the new funding model, so many things that are happening, and so falling out or red herring, the cost of Ruto Gachagua row, and of course you can talk about that and check it on page 4 and 5. Then we go to some of the other stories. Inside the DN2 motoring, here's how motor insurance works. The first principle of the insurance business model is that a customer should never ever profit from any cover. You can read that on the DN2 pullout. From the counties, former officials charged for 296 million shillings bursary heist. Suspects to remain in custody for 7 days pending ruling on bond application. The officials were involved in irregular cash withdrawals and prepared fake minutes for meetings that did not take place. That's according to the EACC, and that was in West Pokot County. From the international news, Israel, Hezbollah renew attacks after deadly day. G7 foreign ministers fear Middle East is being dragged into a broader conflict. And lawyers want court to stop extension of transitional period that is in South Sudan. The business news, farms MV Uhuru meter gauge train diesel contracts. That is, marketers are in a race to bag the multi-billion shillings deal fuel supplies. Value of coffee sold grows on increased volumes and prices. And quickly sports, Emmanuel Wanyonyi from lowly hard boy to Olympic 800 meters champion, and paradox of delayed elections at AK and notable achievements. And Safari Sevens taken to Machakos to spread game to the county. That is on the sports pages inside the Daily Nation.
All right, and coming to the Standard, the very top story here we see is where we get it all wrong with the police. Definitely a lot of tumbo joto to say, especially when police are mentioned. But here it says that it starts with hiring, and a report by a reforms task force led by retired Chief Justice David Maraga reveals that massive corruption at recruitment and training of many officers has led to an end product that is not grounded in matters law and security that are the pillar of their function. So this is what is being said, that at times the people who are initiated into this and put as policemen, recruited, a lot of corruption goes on. And so what we see is rogue policemen, because now from the foundation it says if the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous
Yes.
to. So that is what is being said. And I see here that more on the same, I see task force recommendations, of course, include raising minimum recruitment qualification from a KCSE grade of D+ to C-, and we have extended training period from 9 months to 12 months, revising police training curriculum, and there are more and more task force recommendations right there. And I see here task force report saying senior leadership remains disconnected from junior officers, hindering reform efforts initiated since the adoption of an open door policy in 2001. This is attempting now to explain why we have had so many issues, especially when it comes to the conduct of policemen out here, that it all begins from the recruitment, that corruption and a lot of nepotism, the wrong people being recruited, it begins from the foundation. So we continue to follow up on the same, but you can read that special report on page 6. And page 9, I see Ogamba unions clash over intern teachers training. This is a story on page 9. And still on the top page covered is court blow to Ruto over parastatal sale, what we have seen. So I won't get into that again. I see ODM irony, not in opposition, not in government. That's a story on page 10. Kericho governor in the soup. This is a story on page 17. I wonder what the Kericho governor has done to be in this hot soup. But going on, that is on page 17. You can look at that story in more detail. And page 16, High Court to hear 10 lawsuits on House dissolution over gender rule. And page 2, I see cancel the bad JKIA Adani deal before it's too late. MPs tell Mbadi. So MPs are arguing that the deal is shrouded in secrecy and want the door opened for others. Mbadi says Kenya risks jeopardizing future foreign direct investment opportunities. I mean, we've been on and on about this Adani deal, and our hope is that we'll not just be reporting what is being said, what is not being said, but actually seeing actual progress on the same. And moving on, page 4, I see calls for county shutdown gain hit as cash crunch bites. COG Finance Committee Chairman Fernandes Barasa says the National Treasury owes counties 104 billion shillings. County workers claim they are barely surviving. This is a story covered on page 4. And I see here on page 8, UDA faces uncertain future as simmering war boils over. The Wilbaro Party is at crossroads over the abandoned grassroots elections. Allies of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua say the party is headed in the wrong direction. More on the same was reported on the Daily Nation. And I see 10 support or oppose ODM at crossroads over governance role. 4 of the party's senior members are in cabinet. It was awkward for the Secretary General to attempt to grill his chairman over the Adani deal. Quite sad. I see Muluka, an analyst here, talking about saying you have those isolated voices that are still faithful to the original ODM vision, but ODM as a political corporate entity has succumbed to the machinations of UDA and Kenya Kwanza. This is a story that is covered on page 10. And today on the Enterprise Pullout, the cover story here is why most small businesses face stunted growth. If you have a small business, this will be a very good story to look into. Kipra report says they operate largely informally without any contractual arrangement, which has been noted to cause instability in their operations. That is a story well covered on page 4. 87% being the percentage MSMEs that sell directly to individual consumers. 30% is the percentage of government tenders that a majority of small enterprises are entitled to. And I see here page 6 on how I did it. Someone giving the story, the chicken egg dilemma, how startups can thrive against the odds. Focus on one side of your marketplace first, build value for sellers or buyers, and the other side will follow. Some very important tips. And I see here the key is to start small, focus on providing value, and be patient, since Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither were successful marketplaces. A story that is covered on page 6 of the Enterprise Pullout today. And on the international news, the Israeli economy struggles under weight of Gaza war, I see the Israeli economy may be solid, but it is struggling to withstand this war that has lasted too long. And coming to the sports page, how injured Rodri's absence could hurt City's trophy quest. That's a story on page 32. Page 31, Manchester United eye respite from domestic wars in Europa League. Ten Hag's side failed to show any real improvement from a miserable season last term. Tottenham are also European action, hoping to put disappointing starts to the EPL season behind them. And lastly, page 30, I see Shujaa aim for Safari Sevens 3-peat as rugby finally returns to Machakos. That's it for the Standard.
Right, and quickly on the Business Daily, MPs top the list of 64 billion shillings SACCO loan defaulters. So MPs and former lawmakers top the list of SACCO's loan defaulters that crossed the 60 billion shillings mark as one of the Kenya's wealthiest cooperative society struggles under the weight of unpaid loans. I also see Ruto backs Starlink rivalry with Safaricom, so you can read that as well. And universities cut salary budgets on cash wars, and Treasury rules out blanket tax deal for Adani. So you can grab your favorite copy of your daily and get to read what is being reported, what's happening in our country from the grassroots to the county level, and of course what's happening at the national level. You know, we may be focusing so much on the national level, forgetting what's happening on the grassroots at the county level, which actually affects a majority because you belong to a particular county. And so if things are not working in that county, then directly you and your folks, you'll be affected. So let's continue as well to pray for our nation.
Absolutely. And right about now, it's time for us to have a look at the video of the day. Then we'll come back and talk about it. See you in a short while.